When I passed out at home, my stepmom stepped right over me and said, "Don't call 911, he's just after attention." My dad said nothing as she kicked me out that same night. So I swore to myself one thing: they'd never feel safe leaning on me again. The smell of stale coffee still makes my stomach clench, reminding me of the night my life fractured. I thought being thrown out was the worst of it, but that was just the prologue to a betrayal so deep, it would unravel everything I thought I knew about family. The kitchen tiles were cold against my cheek, and the pounding in my ears drowned out everything but her icy voice. That's when I knew I was truly alone, and they didn't just want me gone, they wanted me erased. I was 17 when I finally understood that some families don't just break, they rot from the inside out. My name is Liam. And no, I wasn't the easiest kid. I asked questions. I pushed back. I couldn't just nod along when things felt fundamentally wrong. But I wasn't some ungrateful punk. I got decent grades. I worked after school, bagging groceries. I never touched anything stronger than a gas station coffee. Still, living under my father's roof, that somehow made me the problem. Or at least that's what my stepmother, Savannah, made sure everyone believed. Savannah entered our lives when I was 11. My mom, Eleanor, had passed 3 years prior in a car accident. For a while, it was just Dad and me. Those years were quiet, sad, but steady. We ate frozen pizza too often, watched old movies on scratchy VHS, and in our strange way, we were okay. Then Savannah arrived like a makeover montage in a bad reality show. Suddenly, everything in our lives needed to change. My room was too messy, my hair too long, my dinners too beige. My dad, who used to laugh at my dumb impressions, who asked about my favorite YouTubers, became this nodding shadow around her, agreeing with every suggestion like he was trying to pass some invisible test. She didn't start off as evil, just controlling. Obsessive about rules that never existed before. No shoes in the house. No phones at the table. No talking back, even when she was clearly wrong. At first, I tried to play along. I really did. I figured maybe she was nervous. Maybe being a stepmom was weird. Maybe she just needed time. But time didn't soften her. It sharpened her edges. The first time I truly felt that cold, rotten shift was the Thanksgiving after she moved in. Savannah had this vision of a perfect holiday straight from a magazine. Gold-trimmed place cards, matching napkin rings, some overpriced candle smelling of pine and burnt sugar. I was supposed to be in charge of the mashed potatoes. Not hard, right? I'd barely started peeling them when she walked in, took one look, and snapped, "Are you seriously doing it like that?" I looked up, confused. "Like what?" "You're wasting half the potato," she scolded, grabbing one. God, no wonder groceries disappear in this house. I just stood there, peeler in hand, as she dumped my half-peeled potatoes into the trash. My dad came in a minute later, saw everything, and didn't say a word. Just gave me this apologetic smile, like, "Come on, Liam. Don't make it worse." Later that night, after everyone had eaten and Savannah was basking in compliments about her green bean casserole, she told the story of my potato disaster like it was a hilarious anecdote. Everyone laughed. I laughed, too. But something small twisted in my chest, like a thread being pulled tight. That thread kept pulling, little by little. Every time she found new ways to embarrass me, like when she donated half my clothes to Goodwill without asking, claiming they made me look sloppy. Or when she accidentally threw away the model airplane I'd been working on for weeks. "I thought it was trash," she'd say, not even looking up from her phone. But nothing hit harder than the silence from my dad. The same man who cheered at my science fair projects, who drove across town for a forgotten textbook, now couldn't seem to look me in the eye when Savannah was in the room. It was like he was trying to keep the peace by pretending I wasn't bleeding under the surface. There were brief moments I thought maybe I was imagining it, that I was being dramatic. But then there'd be a moment, a tight-lipped smile from her when I got home 5 minutes late, a sarcastic, "Oh, you're gracing us with your presence," when I came to dinner, and the doubt would vanish. This wasn't in my head. She didn't like me. More than that, she resented my very existence. I kept my head down, focused on school, saved money from my job, kept to myself. But no matter how invisible I tried to be, she found ways to pick. Like I was a loose thread on her curated life, she couldn't resist yanking. Then came that one winter night, the night that would unravel everything. I was in the kitchen late, warming up leftover pasta after work. My hands were shaking, my legs felt weirdly heavy, and I had this pounding in my ears. I tried to brush it off. Maybe I was dehydrated. Maybe it was just stress. But as I stood up to put the plate in the sink, the room spun so hard I barely caught the counter. My knees buckled. I hit the tile like a puppet with cut strings. That's when I heard it. Her voice, sharp and icy. "Oh, for God's sake. Not this again." I tried to speak, to say I needed help, but my chest felt tight and wrong. I was breathing fast, too fast, and everything felt distant, like I was underwater. Then I saw her heels step right over me. No panic, no urgency, just irritation. "Don't call 911, she snapped to someone behind her, probably my dad. "He's just looking for attention. Let him lie there." I couldn't believe it. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. And she was acting like I'd spilled a drink on her rug. The worst part, the part one still think about when I can't sleep, my dad didn't say a word. He just watched. Later that night, when I finally came to, dizzy, sweating, and humiliated, she didn't just ignore me. She told me to get out. No warning, no conversation. Just, "You're not going to pull this kind of drama in my house. Pack a bag." I stood in the doorway with my backpack half-zipped, staring at my dad, hoping, begging he'd say something, anything. But he just looked away. That night, I walked out into the cold with nothing but a hoodie, $40 in my wallet, and a promise burning in my chest like fire: they'd never feel safe counting on me again. I meant it. What I didn't know then, shivering in the bus station bathroom, scrolling through my contacts for anyone who'd let me crash, was that the real retribution wouldn't come quickly. It would take time, planning, patience. Because when a family throws you out like trash, you don't just pick yourself up. You learn to build the furnace that will burn everything they took for granted. And the match? That would come 2 years later from the last person they expected. I spent the first few nights couch surfing, but even that didn't last long. You learn quickly that most people are willing to help until helping becomes inconvenient. By the 5th night, I was sleeping behind the community center near my school, curled up on a flattened cardboard box under a leaking gutter. I didn't cry, though. I think I'd cried all the tears I had the moment my dad looked away while Savannah told me to leave. I kept showing up to school, not because I cared about grades then, but because it was warm and the bathroom had soap. I stole food from the cafeteria on days I was too embarrassed to ask for help. Sometimes my English teacher, Ms. Albright, would bring an extra sandwich to class and casually leave it on my desk. I think she knew. She never said anything outright. Just gave me a look that said, "You're not invisible, Liam. I see you." Eventually, I found a rhythm. Picked up more shifts at the grocery store. Found a cheap shared room with 2 other guys near campus. Scraped by. My grades dropped, but I still graduated. Barely. I didn't go to prom. Didn't walk at graduation. I didn't see the point. My dad didn't call, not once. But the world didn't stop, and neither did I. I got accepted into a local community college, started studying tech, and finally landed a stable job doing tech support for a small business. It was boring, but it paid. I kept my head down, stayed out of trouble. People say retribution is best served cold, but mine wasn't cold. It simmered low and slow, just beneath the surface. I didn't have some evil master plan from day one. I just knew that one day they'd need me for something, and when they did, I'd be ready. I hadn't spoken to my dad in nearly 3 years when the first email came. Subject line, "Hope you're doing well, buddy." I stared at it for a long time before clicking. The message was short. "Hey Liam, I know it's been a while. I'm sorry we haven't talked. Savannah's been going through some health stuff lately and things have been stressful. Anyway, I was just thinking about you and wanted to check in. Let me know how you're doing. Dad." It felt surreal, like hearing from a ghost. For a split second, I almost replied with a simple, "I'm fine. Hope she's okay." But then I remembered the tile floor, her heels stepping over me, my dad standing frozen in the hallway while I gasped for air. The fire came roaring back. I didn't respond. The second message came 2 weeks later. "Hey Liam, just wanted to follow up. We'd really love to see you sometime. Savannah's been asking about you. Things were tense before, I know, but maybe we could talk. Maybe dinner." Dad. I deleted it. A month passed. Then 2. I started getting friend requests on Facebook from people I hadn't seen since high school. One of them, a girl named Chloe who used to sit behind me in chemistry, messaged me out of nowhere. "Hey Liam, saw your dad the other day at the hardware store. He mentioned Savannah's sick. You okay?" I blinked. Sick? She didn't look sick in the photos. Still posting selfies with overpriced lattes and captions like "too blessed to be stressed." Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked on my dad's Facebook profile. It was still set to public. There, in plain sight, was a post from 3 months earlier, "Please keep Savannah in your prayers. She's been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. She's strong, but this road won't be easy." I didn't feel nothing, but I didn't feel much either. Mostly just tired. Tired of the manipulation. Tired of only being thought of when they needed something. And then came the message that changed everything. "Liam, I know you're upset and I don't blame you, but we're in a bit of a tough spot. Insurance is only covering part of Savannah's treatments and the house is starting to fall apart. The roof needs replacing. The furnace is shot. I hate to ask this, but I heard you're working in IT now. Any chance you could help us get set up with some kind of GoFundMe page? We don't really understand how that stuff works, and you're always so good with computers. I'd be willing to pay you for your time. Please, Dad." I stared at the screen, jaw clenched so hard I thought I might crack a molar. Not "I'm sorry I didn't defend you." Not "I regret what happened." Not even "we miss you." Just, "we need you now, so show up." I could have ignored it. Could have blocked him. Changed my number. Disappeared again. But something in me snapped that day. Not just anger, but resolve. I wrote back, "Sure, I can help." 2 days later, I pulled into the driveway of the house I used to call home. It looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling. Weeds had overtaken the garden Savannah used to obsess over. The porch light was flickering. I stood at the bottom step for a long time before finally knocking. Savannah answered. She was thinner, paler. Her hair was shorter, probably from chemo. She wore a headscarf and an oversized sweater. For just a moment, I saw something in her eyes that almost looked like fear. Then it was gone. "Well," she said, arms crossed. "Look who decided to remember his family." I gave her a polite, controlled smile. "You said you needed help." She sniffed and stepped aside. "He's in the kitchen." I walked in. The house smelled different now, less like vanilla candles and more like dust and age. My dad was sitting at the table, fingers wrapped around a coffee mug. He looked older, too. Tired, weathered. "Hey, Liam," he said, standing up. I didn't hug him, didn't offer my hand, just nodded. What exactly do you need? He fumbled with a piece of paper. Well, the medical bills are piling up, and someone said if we made one of those donation pages, people might help out, but I don't know how to, make it look legit. I pulled out my laptop, sat down, and started typing. Savannah hovered behind me like a ghost, occasionally commenting. Make sure you include the part about me being a mother, she said. That always tugs on heartstrings. I stopped typing and turned slowly. You're not a mother, I said. Her face went slack. Excuse me? You never were, I continued. You married my dad. That's it. You don't get to rewrite history just because you're sick now. My dad opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. Don't. You had your chance to speak 3 years ago. Silence. I finished the page, added photos, details, links, made it as professional as possible. Then I handed him the login info. There, it's done. I'll transfer admin rights to you. You can update it however you want. Wait, Savannah said, eyes narrowing. You're not going to promote it? Share it on your social media or whatever? I stood up, closed my laptop. I don't owe you that. Her mouth opened, then closed. My dad looked at the floor. I walked to the door but paused before stepping out. Just remember, I said quietly. You taught me something important that night. That love in this house was conditional. That loyalty was a one-way street. I didn't forget. Then I left. And that could have been the end of it. But then came the betrayal that finally broke whatever thread of humanity was still tying me to them. A week later, I got a call from my bank. Someone had attempted to access my account using old security information. I hadn't shared that info in years, except once when I was 15, and Savannah insisted on knowing it in case of emergencies. I changed my passwords, locked everything down, but I was rattled. Then came a second attempt. Then a third. I didn't have proof it was them until I got the email. A hastily written, poorly spelled message from a throwaway Gmail account. You owe us after everything we did for you. This is how you repay us. Don't forget whose roof you used to live under. That's when I knew they hadn't just wanted help. They wanted access to my life, to my accounts, to my money. And that was the moment the simmering fire in my chest turned into something sharper, colder, focused. They wanted me back in their lives? Fine. I'd give them exactly what they wanted, but not the way they expected. Because the next time I walked through their door, it wouldn't be as the desperate, kicked-out teenager they remembered. It would be as someone they couldn't control, couldn't manipulate, someone who had the power to take everything they still had and burn it down. But I didn't rush, because retribution, real retribution, takes time. And trust me, I was just getting started. I didn't sleep the night I got that email. I just sat there on the edge of my bed, staring at the glowing screen, rereading the message until the words blurred. You owe us. Don't forget whose roof you used to live under. It wasn't just a threat. It was a reminder. A gut punch flashback to everything I'd buried. The cardboard box behind the community center, the empty stomach, the brittle silence from my dad while Savannah threw out pieces of my childhood like they were trash. I thought I'd moved past it. Thought I'd grown thicker skin, built a better life. But now that skin felt paper thin. I locked everything down, changed all my passwords, called the bank, froze my credit. I even installed a VPN and two-factor authentication on every account I had. Paranoia, maybe, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd crawl through any crack they could find if it meant getting their hands on something that wasn't theirs. The fallout hit harder than I expected. I stopped going out. I barely responded to texts. I wasn't scared. I was ashamed. Like I'd been tricked into walking back into the same burning house, convinced this time I wouldn't get burned. I'd fallen for it again. The idea that maybe, just maybe, they could change. I started missing work. My boss, Marcus, a chill guy in his late 30s with a habit of wearing comic book tees to meetings, called me into his office one Friday. "You good, Liam?" he asked, leaning back in his squeaky chair. "You've been off your game lately." "Not like you." I wanted to lie. Say it was the flu or finals or something. But something about the way he asked, genuine, not nosy, broke down the wall I'd been holding up with duct tape and stubbornness. "Just family stuff," I muttered. He nodded slowly. "Want to talk about it?" I hesitated. Then I told him. Not everything, but enough. The night I collapsed. The way Savannah stepped over me. The silence from my dad. The emails. The GoFundMe scam attempt. All of it. Marcus didn't blink. He just listened. When I finished, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "Look, man, you've been through hell, and it sounds like you never got a second to breathe. But you're here now. That means something." I stared at the floor, chewing the inside of my cheek. "You're not alone," he added. "Seriously, I know this place isn't Google or whatever, but we look out for each other. You need time, take it. You need help, ask. Just don't carry this by yourself." That conversation didn't fix everything. But it cracked something open in me. A window, maybe. A reminder that not everyone wanted to take from me. That there were people, real people, who didn't treat compassion like a currency. I took a few days off, not to sulk, but to breathe, to reset. And then I got to work. At first, it was small stuff. Cleaning my apartment. Organizing bills. Making a meal that didn't come out of a microwave. I started running in the mornings, just laps around the block with music blasting in my ears. The feeling of movement helped. It made me feel like I wasn't stuck anymore. I started freelancing on the side, small tech gigs, fixing home networks, building websites for local shops. One of the clients, a bookstore owner named Sophia, loved the site I made so much, she recommended me to have her business circle. Soon, I was making more on side projects than I was at my day job. And I didn't stop there. I used my downtime to build something I'd been dreaming about for months, a platform for small creators to sell their services without getting gouged by big middlemen. It wasn't flashy, and I didn't expect it to blow up, but I poured myself into it. Taught myself basic front-end design, hired a developer from Fiverr to help with the back-end, and launched a bare-bones version within 4 months. I named it TrueBridge. Simple, but it meant something to me. A way for people to connect directly. No fake smiles, no manipulation, just skill and trust. Traffic was slow at first, but Sophia used it. Then a photographer she knew joined. Then a local music teacher. Word spread. A year after the GoFundMe incident, I was running TrueBridge full-time. I'd quit the support job, hired 2 interns from the local college, and was even featured in a niche blog about ethical tech startups. My bank account was healthier than it had ever been. My apartment was upgraded, and I had something I never really thought I'd have again, peace. And yet, the shadow of them never quite left. Every time I got an unknown call, my heart jumped. Every time I saw an older couple on the street, my eyes scanned their faces, looking for something familiar. I didn't hate them, not exactly, but I hated the version of myself I became around them. Smaller, quieter, scared. One afternoon, I got a message from Ms. Albright, my old English teacher. "Hey Liam, I saw the article about your company. I'm so proud of you. Would you be open to coming back and speaking to my senior class? They're doing a project on resilience, and I think you'd be perfect." I said yes before I could overthink it. Walking back into that high school felt like stepping into a time machine. The hallways smelled the same, cheap sanitizer and cafeteria pizza. Ms. Albright greeted me with a hug and led me to her classroom where 20 seniors sat in a semicircle, bored and scrolling on their phones. Then she introduced me, and I started talking. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them about the night I collapsed, about getting kicked out, about living behind a community center. I watched their expressions change from disinterest to shock to something softer. I told them about rebuilding, about building myself. And when I finished, the room was silent for a second before someone clapped. Then another, then the whole class. Afterward, a kid came up to me. Thin, hoodie pulled low, nervous energy vibrating off him. "Hey," he muttered. My stepdad's kind of like that, too. I didn't know people came out of that. I didn't have to think. I just said, "You can. You will." As I drove home that day, windows down, sun painting gold streaks across the dashboard, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. But then, just as the air started to feel light again, the past came roaring back. It started as a knock at my door. Not a text, not an email, a literal physical knock. I peeked through the peephole. My father. He looked rough, thinner, with deep lines carved into his face. His coat hung off him like it didn't quite belong. I didn't open the door. Not at first. He knocked again, softer this time. "Liam," he called. "Please, just a minute." I opened the door an inch, just enough to see his eyes. "I need to talk," he said, voice cracking. I messed up." I didn't respond. "She's gone," he said. I blinked. "Savannah," he nodded. And for a second, I felt nothing. No joy, no relief, just emptiness. Like a chapter had ended without a proper sentence. "She passed a few weeks ago," he said. I didn't know where else to go. That hit harder than I thought it would. "You've got cousins, church friends, neighbors." He looked down. "None of them stuck. And the ones that did, they don't talk to me anymore." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Why are you really here, Dad?" He hesitated, then pulled a folded paper from his coat. It was a letter, not from him, from her. Scrawled in a messy, looping hand. "If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. And if Liam is the one holding this, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth." I stopped reading. I stepped back, closed the door, locked it, and stood there, paper trembling in my hands. There was more. I knew there was more, but I wasn't ready yet. Not to forgive. Not to forget. But maybe, just maybe, to finally understand what they were so desperate to hide all along. And that's when the next twist hit me like a freight train. Because inside that letter, buried halfway down the page, was a sentence that would change everything I thought I knew about my own family. It was only 9 words long. But those 9 words, they would flip my entire world upside down. And I hadn't even reached the end of the letter yet. 9 words. "There's something you don't know about your mother's will." That's what Savannah had written halfway through her messy, last-minute letter. It wasn't even underlined. Just dropped there casually in between vague apologies and defensive half-truths about how hard it was blending a family. But those 9 words refused to sit still in my mind. They pulsed, buzzed, lit a fuse I hadn't even known was buried inside me. I read the letter twice more, start to finish. Most of it was useless, hollow attempts at justification, phrases like, "I didn't know how to be a stepmom and you were always so distant." But then tucked at the very end, like an afterthought, was a postscript that felt more like a dare than a confession. "Ask your father about the trust and about why he never told you it existed." I folded the letter slowly, slid it into a drawer, and sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. The trust? What trust? I hadn't thought about my mother's will in years. She died when I was 8. At the time, I was too young to grasp anything beyond the fact that she was gone, that her pillows still smelled like lavender, and that my dad stopped playing music around the house after the funeral. There had been lawyers, I vaguely remembered, papers. A brief talk about life insurance that ended with my grandma sobbing into her sweater. But a trust? That was new. And if it was real, if Savannah was telling the truth even once in her life, then my father had been hiding something big. Not just emotionally, but legally, financially. Something about that possibility didn't just make me angry. It made me sharp. So, I started digging. First, I called the attorney who handled my mom's estate. Or tried to. The firm had changed names twice since then, but after some persistent emails and one overly long phone call with a woman named Dana who thought I was trying to sell something, I got transferred to an older man named Mr. Jenkins. "Bradley Carter?" he asked, voice rough but focused. "You're Eleanor's son?" I nodded before realizing he couldn't see me. "Yes, sir." There was a pause. "I thought you might call one day." That sentence alone told me I wasn't crazy. "I just have a question," I said carefully. "Did my mom leave a trust when she died?" Another pause. Longer this time. "She did," he said finally. "A revocable living trust established shortly after her cancer diagnosis. Everything was supposed to pass to you when you turned 25. In the meantime, your father was named trustee." I sat bolt upright. "So, he's been managing it this whole time?" "He was managing it," Mr. Jenkins said. "But I stopped receiving communication from him about 4 years ago. I assumed the trust had been dissolved or transferred." "Was that not the case?" I clenched my jaw. "No one ever told me anything. Not about the trust. Not about any of this." "That's concerning," Mr. Jenkins said. "Because unless there was an amendment filed, which to my knowledge, there wasn't, the trust should still be active, and depending on the assets within it, that could mean quite a bit of money." I felt my heart thump against my ribs. "Would you be able to send me a copy?" I asked. "I'll email over what I have," he replied. "But I'd advise you to speak with a new estate attorney immediately. This might be more tangled than you think." He wasn't kidding. The email came an hour later. Attached were 2 documents, the original trust paperwork and a cover letter signed by both of my parents. The trust was simple. The family home, several stock investments, and a life insurance policy worth $250,000, all designated for me. My dad, as trustee, was supposed to use the assets only for my benefit until I came of age. Except I'd never seen a dime, never heard a word. And the house? That was the same house Savannah had kicked me out of like I was some stray animal. Rage didn't even cover it. This wasn't just emotional betrayal anymore. This was theft. Financial abuse. And if my father had dipped into that trust without court approval, it was a serious offense. But I didn't blow up. I didn't drive to his house screaming for answers. I got quiet. Strategic. Because this time I wasn't going to let them play defense. I was going to take control. First, I met with a new estate lawyer, a young woman named Isabella Chin, sharp as a razor and deeply unimpressed by my dad's behavior. "This happens more than you think," she said after skimming the documents. "People assume kids won't remember what was promised to them. But you're well within your rights to demand a full accounting of the trust. And if funds were misused, that's fraud. Plain and simple." We filed a petition with the probate court that week. A formal request to force my father to disclose every transaction made from the trust since its creation. And then I waited, but not idly. While the paperwork was moving, I started pulling strings. I called Sophia, the bookstore owner who'd once vouched for me. Told her I was looking for a freelance private investigator, someone discreet. She laughed. "You're in luck. My nephew works cases like this all the time. Divorces, estates, background checks. You'll like him. His name was David. Ex-cop, now freelance. With a warm handshake and a 1,000-yard stare, I handed him everything I had. The trust documents. The letter. Even screenshots of Savannah's GoFundMe scam attempt. I want a full picture, I told him. I want to know where the money went and who knew what. He nodded. Give me a week. That week was the longest of my life. I still ran TrueBridge, still met with clients, still worked out, still smiled. But underneath it all, I was boiling. Because every day I imagined it. My dad sitting in that kitchen watching Savannah mock me, knowing full well he was stealing from me. That every time I couldn't afford rent, every time I skipped a meal, every time I almost gave up, he was sitting on money that wasn't his. Finally, David called. You're going to want to sit down, he said. I did. He walked me through it. The trust had originally been worth around $400,000 once the investments matured, thanks to compounding interest and careful selection by my mother's financial advisor. But starting around the time I was 15, just before Savannah officially moved in, withdrawals began. Furniture. Travel. Home renovations. And then this one stung, Savannah's boutique business. He sent me a screenshot of a transaction, $38,000 wired directly from the trust into a business account in Savannah's name. The boutique had gone under in less than a year, but the money was gone. Other expenses followed. A new car. Private spa memberships. Even a week-long cruise. All paid for using my trust under the guise of family enrichment. David finished the report with a list of every major purchase linked to the trust. I just stared at it. The couch they bought the year I was kicked out, $2,800. Trust funds. The backyard patio where they hosted their anniversary party, $11,000. Trust funds. My mom's legacy gone piece by piece like someone carving meat off a bone. I sat in silence for a long time. Phone pressed to my ear. You okay, man? David asked. I'm good, I said slowly. I just need to make one more call. The call was to Isabella. She picked up on the second ring. We're going to escalate, I told her. They used the money for personal expenses. I want to sue. We can, she said. But that won't be enough. What do you mean? If we really want this to stick, she explained, we'll need to file a formal complaint with the state bar and potentially criminal charges. If we can prove it was intentional misappropriation of funds, your father could face prosecution. That gave me pause. I didn't want to ruin his life. But he hadn't hesitated to ruin mine. And Savannah, she may have been gone, but her fingerprints were on everything. Every stolen dollar, every lie, every time she made me feel like an intruder in my own home. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about consequences. But I didn't act yet. I waited. Because one final card was left to play. I wanted my father to see what I had built. I wanted him to realize that the son he cast aside had grown into someone powerful, someone capable of tearing down everything he tried to keep from me. So I invited him to coffee. Neutral ground. Midday. No lawyers. Just two men sitting at a small cafe table under a yellow umbrella. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Like the guilt had started eating him from the inside out. Or maybe just the fear of being caught. He smiled weakly. Thanks for meeting me. I sipped my coffee. I know about the trust. His face drained of color. I know about the withdrawals, the boutique, the car, the cruise. All of it. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. No excuses, I said. No stories. Just listen. I laid out everything. The timeline. The paper trail. The petition. The PI's findings. The court date. The fact that I had enough evidence to bury him legally if I wanted to. He stared at me, lips trembling. I didn't mean to steal it, he said. Things were tight. Savannah said, she said it would be temporary. She said a lot of things, I replied. And you believed all of them, even when they came at my expense. He swallowed hard. What do you want from me? That was the question, wasn't it? What did I want? I leaned back and smiled, not because I was happy, but because I finally had what I never had growing up. Control. You'll find out soon enough, I said. But know this, it's not forgiveness. And I stood up. Because retribution, it doesn't come when they expect it. It comes when they think they've already gotten away with it. And now it was finally time to take everything back, piece by piece. He didn't try to follow me after that meeting. Didn't call, didn't email. I think on some level he finally understood the door was closed and I wasn't opening it again. Not for guilt, not for tears, not for whatever scrap of fatherhood he still clung to in his mind. But that was fine. I didn't need anything from him anymore. I'd already taken the one thing he never expected I'd have, power. And now it was time to use it. 3 weeks later, the court date arrived. I walked into the courthouse in a gray suit that actually fit. Nothing fancy, just clean, crisp, and quietly confident. My lawyer, Isabella, walked beside me like she was heading into battle. Calm, sharp, efficient. She carried the full binder of evidence David had put together, along with the filings we'd made under California Probate Code 16061, which required trustees to keep beneficiaries fully informed. My father was already there when we arrived, seated on the opposite side of the courtroom. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His lawyer, some tired man with coffee-stained papers and the energy of someone used to cleaning up other people's messes, avoided eye contact with us. When the judge called our case, the courtroom quieted. Isabella stood up first, laying everything out with clinical precision, the trust, the expenditures, the unexplained transfers, and the complete absence of proper accounting over the last decade. Then came the exhibits, bank statements, email chains, purchase histories, a written deposition from David, and finally, a copy of Savannah's handwritten letter with the crucial paragraph about the trust highlighted in yellow. My father didn't say a word the entire time. His lawyer offered a weak defense that the funds had been commingled accidentally, that Savannah had handled most of the household finances, that my father had simply been misinformed about the legality of the withdrawals. The judge didn't buy it for a second. I find the actions of the trustee to be in violation of his fiduciary duty, she said, glancing over her glasses. This is not a matter of ignorance. It is a pattern of sustained, deliberate misappropriation of funds over several years. As such, I am ordering the immediate removal of Mr. Carter as trustee. Furthermore, the court is requiring a full restitution of all misused funds plus interest and referring the case to the district attorney's office for potential criminal investigation. She banged the gavel just once. Clean. Final. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just turned, nodded to Isabella, and walked out. Let the system do the rest. But I wasn't done yet. See, retribution isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration, about taking back what was stolen. Not just the money, but the narrative, the dignity, the truth. So, I called up the same local paper that had once featured me for launching TrueBridge. I told them the whole story. Not the bitter, ugly parts, but the truth about a kid who'd been kicked out and ignored, who'd lived on couches and cardboard and still built something. Who fought for justice, not out of spite, but because silence is how people like Savannah win. The article ran the next week. From disowned to determined, local entrepreneur reclaims inheritance after betrayal. It spread fast. Local news picked it up. A tech blog reposted it. Then it got shared on Reddit, of all places, where it blew up under r/pro-revenge and r/entitled parents. Thousands of upvotes, comments like, "This is how you do it," and "I hope his dad has to read this every day for the rest of his life." But what mattered more? People from my past started reaching out. Ms. Albright sent me a voice message saying how proud she was. Chloe from high school messaged me again, this time with nothing but a heart and a "you deserve everything good coming your way." And Sophia, she framed the article and hung it in her bookstore window. But the best moment? That came 6 weeks after the court ruling. I was sitting in my office tweaking the next TrueBridge update when an email came through from my dad's attorney. Subject line, settlement offer. Urgent response requested. They were offering full restitution. Every cent taken from the trust, including compounded interest, paid directly into my account in exchange for dropping the criminal referral. I didn't respond right away. I waited 3 days. Then I replied with a single sentence. I will accept the restitution, but the referral stays. Because he had to learn. You don't get to treat someone like they're disposable and then bargain your way out of consequences when the tides turn. You don't get to erase a lifetime of silence and cowardice with a check. He was indicted 4 months later. Fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of funds. The charges weren't heavy enough to land him in prison for years, but he was convicted. He lost his accounting license, had to sell the house to cover legal fees. His name was ruined in every professional circle he once clung to. And me? I used part of the settlement to expand TrueBridge into new cities, opened a small office space downtown, hired 2 new developers, launched a mentorship program for underprivileged teens who wanted to learn tech but had no resources. I named the program after my mom, the Eleanor Carter Initiative, because she was the reason I'd made it this far. Her love, her voice in the back of my head reminding me I was more than what they tried to make me feel. And on the first day of the program launch, I stood at the front of the room looking out at 12 nervous, wide-eyed kids who reminded me of myself. I told them my story, not for sympathy, but so they'd know that no matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how hard the fall, you could still rise, stronger, smarter, and free. The last time I saw my father, it was outside the courthouse. He was waiting on the steps, wearing a wrinkled suit and holding a thin envelope. He stepped forward when he saw me, eyes hollow. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he mumbled. For everything. I looked at him for a long moment, then down at the envelope. My name was scrawled on it in his handwriting. I think I'm finally ready, he said. But I shook my head. I'm not, I said quietly. And I walked away. Because the apology wasn't for me. It was for him. And I wasn't carrying his guilt anymore. As I turned the corner, the sun hit my face and I felt it. Lightness. Not joy, not closure, but peace. The kind that comes when you've told the truth. When you face the fire and walked through it without letting it own you. And the final thought I had before stepping into the cab, before heading back to the life I built with my own 2 hands, was this: they stepped over me when I needed them most. Now they'll spend the rest of their lives realizing I never needed them at all. What would you have done if your past came calling, not with an apology, but with an echo of their greed?